And how about a pavement?
A sidewalk.
Wonderful. And a queue?
A line.
A bin?
A garbage can.
Car park?
A parking lot.
Petrol?
Gas.
A jumper?
A sweater.
Lovely. Trainer?
Gym shoes.
And a lift?
An elevator.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to English with Lewis and my Wednesday habit of interviewing a different teacher, creator, and great, interesting person. So, that being said, Claire, welcome. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
I'm not bad. Right now, looking outside, it's a bit grey, sad, foggy, depressing. So, apart from that, I'm all good. What's the weather like where you are?
It's exactly the same. Gray, depressing January in Germany. So I'm right there with you.
Yay! Yeah, some context for everybody. I'm a very hardworking person, and I really like to get ahead. I like to do work before it's necessary to do it. So in particular with these conversations, as you might have noticed in recent weeks, I kind of record them at the beginning of the quarter, and then that should see me through until the end of the quarter. I'm trying to be as organized as possible. And let me know in the comments. Are you an organized person? Do you like to get ahead when you have deadlines and lots of work? Because I'm eager to find out.
That's,
Yeah, Claire,
you're
do you
doing
do
way
the
better
same
than me
thing?
with that.
Do you
Well,
try to get
I
ahead?
I do it for my short form content. All of the short videos that I put out are pretty well planned in advance. But yeah, I'm definitely not months ahead for my YouTube videos. Although I do let my channel members vote on the topic for that week. So I guess I kind of leave it up to them and then film right before posting. But it's very organized. It's impressive.
I'm proud of myself at the moment. I should give myself a pat on the back. Like, it's not
Definitely.
always like this. This is an exception for sure. And you used a nice expression, which was, it's up to them. So it's up to your members of your YouTube channel, meaning it's like their decision. They can choose what type of content you post.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So anyway, tell everybody about you. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Claire, and I am from the US, originally from the Chicago area. So that's like the Midwest. Um, and I currently live in Germany. So I have lived here for about 6 years. And the main reason that I live here is because I'm also an opera singer, which people may or may not know about me. So I studied singing at university or college, we would say in the US, right? But
Wow.
university in British English.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also lived in London for a little bit. And yeah, so I kind of do both. I've always taught English alongside my singing.
Wonderful. So from Chicago, it's Nick called the Windy City, right?
Mhm.
Is it really windy?
It is windy because of the lake. So it's right on Lake Michigan, right on the lakefront, we would say. So that's where it gets that name because usually when a city is right next to a body of water, it's often very windy. So yeah, it does get windy, but Chicago, you see every type of weather imaginable. You get all seasons.
And what are your favorite things about Chicago? Because I've never visited, and I imagine many people watching this video have heard of Chicago, but they've no idea what it's actually like.
Okay, Chicago is a great city. You should definitely go if you get a chance. Because it has a lot of green and like nature in the city, but then obviously you also get the city feel and then it's right on the lake. So you kind of have that beach vibe. I mean, when it is really warm or hot, the weather is hot, then you also have that like a beach. So it kind of has everything. Like there's a lot of good music, jazz bars, that kind of thing. Really good food. Famous for the Chicago hot dog. Which I don't know if you've ever heard about that.
I haven't, no. Tell me what's different with this hot dog.
Well, with this hot dog, it would be illegal. No, not really. But it would just be not cool if you put ketchup on it.
Okay.
You could only put mustard and relish on this hot dog, and yeah, and a bit of celery salt, and that's the Chicago way.
Okay, interesting. It sounds like Chicagoans. Is there a
Hmm.
term for people? Chicagoans?
Yeah.
Uh, let's say so. It seems like they're quite particular, picky, or different when it comes to food, just because of the example of pizza. Because I know, of course, you have Italian style pizza from Italy, the original. It's really like a thick dough and thick crust, but then it's really like floppy in the middle. Absolutely delicious. It is to die for. And then most American pizza is a bit thicker, a bit sweeter, a bit cheesier, with loads and loads of toppings. But then in Chicago, it's deep dish. Like,
That's right.
what is it like? Again, I've never tried it. And do you prefer it to the other styles of pizza?
Mm, I do like deep dish pizza. Uh, I don't know if it would be my favorite type of pizza, but if you're in the mood for it, it's really good. Yeah, it's basically like a pie of pizza. It has that like thick, but the crust is pretty tall and very thick. And then the pizza is just stacked with like sauce and cheese about that, as tall as the crust. So you really need a knife and fork to eat this pizza. But yeah, it's really good.
It sounds very filling as well.
Oh yeah, you only need like, well, at least I just need like one piece. You couldn't finish a deep dish pizza all to yourself, which that's the style. Like you would order one pizza and they'd bring it to your table sort of on this platter, and then you're able to just cut into it. But you would never order just yourself a deep dish pizza. It would be way too much.
It sounds like something. I'm sure there are some like food challenges for like Chicago deep dish food challenge, like man versus food to see how much you can eat with people around, like being like,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sure
you can do it.
that does sound very American.
And another thing that is celebrated a lot in the United States, and I believe in particular in Chicago and maybe Boston as well, is St. Patrick's Day. Because
Mm.
right now I can think of the river that's been like dyed green because of St. Patrick. Have you celebrated St. Patrick's Day in Chicago before? And if so, what's it like?
So I haven't actually been in Chicago for St. Patrick's Day, but it is a huge deal in the US in general. But yeah, definitely where I'm from, we would always have uh, our milk, we would dye our milk green.
Ugh.
So we would have green milk with like corned beef and hash. And when I lived in London, or, when I lived in the UK, I met some actual Irish people. And I was like, oh, yeah, corned beef and hash, green milk, guys, right? St. Patrick's Day. And they were just completely like, what are you talking about? I don't know where we got it, but we've just really honed in on St. Patrick's Day as like this amazing holiday where we dye things green. An entire river, for example, in Chicago. And yeah, obviously it's just an excuse to drink a lot as well.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like good fun. It sounds a little bit over the top, a bit much in some ways, but I mean, it's a party, so why not? Like, if you're not
Yeah,
going to go over the top at other moments, like, you're not going to do it for a party, when are you going to do it?
it's good fun.
It sounds great. Now, anyway, moving on from the United States for now, you mentioned that you're living in Germany at the moment, and previously you lived in London. So, did you always want to move abroad when you were growing up?
That's a great question because I would have considered myself, or I still do consider myself, to be a homebody. So that is like someone who likes to stay at home, basically. And as a child, I was always, a homebody. And um, it wasn't until really that I got into opera that I started kind of really getting into the idea of living in Europe, just as an idea in general. I didn't really care where. Um, like I had like a Paris themed bedroom growing up, and I always loved Vienna because of the Vienna State Opera House there. So yeah, I just always wanted to kind of live over in Europe, but I often think like I'm surprised by myself that I actually went and did it because I always was kind of a homebody.
And yeah, obviously the first thing, did you go to, London first or Germany first?
So I actually moved to Vienna first. Yeah, I worked as an au pair there. So I lived with a family who had two small children, and they paid for my lessons in German. So I had already learned a little bit of German when I was in college in the US. But then I studied German pretty intensively at the University of Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and I also studied singing there as well.
Wonderful. Vienna, what's it like?
Vienna is, oh, it's such a beautiful city. It has such this old feel, like an old classic feel, and everyone dresses very beautifully. Um, and yeah, the kind of stereotype of Vienna is that everyone's like a little bit rude,
Okay.
but people expect it this way. So if you were to go to a cafe and order, the waiter would, kind of be a little bit, mm,
A bit
blase with you.
standoffish,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah. That's what
Confrontational,
the word I'm
perhaps?
looking for. Exactly. And coming from the Midwest, that's like a total 180. Like everyone is super friendly and almost the opposite, like oversharing in maybe a cafe with a waiter, even. But in Vienna, yeah, it was the opposite. But amazing culture just throughout the whole city. It's a beautiful place.
Now, I've heard very nice things about Vienna, and when you look at pictures, it seems like all of the buildings are absolutely beautiful. And historically, it's always been a kind of rich city, so you can see that in the architecture. And I know it's famous for like schnitzels as well. I
Mhm.
always end up speaking about food. Wherever we're speaking about it, always goes back to food. But now living in Brussels, I have the kind of fortunate situation to be able to travel to many different places in just like an hour, 2 hours. So whenever I'm looking on like the app for like Ryanair, for example, I'm like, oh, maybe I could go to Vienna, or maybe I could go to Prague, because everywhere is kind of close. And
Yeah.
Vienna is one of these places that maybe this year I'll go and visit. Maybe.
Yeah, you should. Another uh, food in Vienna that's famous is the Sachertorte. It's like this famous chocolate, very rich chocolate cake. I think with cherry fill, or like with a little bit of cherry filling, or um, yeah, it's
So
really good.
good. Would you recommend it?
It is, yeah. It's very rich, but it's good. You can have that with a melange, which is what they say for cappuccino. I believe it's like the same as a cappuccino, but it's a melange. It's all coming back to me now.
No, no, it's nice to think about these things and reminisce also about what you did, what you studied, and stuff like that. Just a nice little adjective to use. You said it's very rich. When speaking about chocolate or desserts, we can describe it as being rich. And it's also related to being a bit sickly, perhaps. So if something is like too chocolatey, too sweet, it can be a little bit sickly. But hey, I'll have to go and see for myself, I guess. No, when it came to being an au pair there and learning German, what kind of study plan did you have? And I assume you were speaking only in English with the children. But I don't know about the family, if they spoke to you in German to help you improve. Like, what was the scenario?
So I did mainly speak in English with the family, and that was a little bit of a choice, but also because my German probably wasn't good enough to communicate with them just on a daily basis. But they also didn't really want the children to catch on that I could speak German because they wanted them to exclusively speak English with me. Because as soon as they maybe knew that I would understand, they would switch a lot to German if they got too frustrated speaking English with me. But I also needed to speak English most of the time back in those days. Yeah.
And now, what is the current state of affairs with your German? Like, are you fluent, confident? How good is it?
So I would say I'm fluent, although I think a lot of English learners or just other language learners would relate to this feeling where you almost don't want to say that you're fluent because you never feel 100%. But I do teach in German. I have singing students that come to my home, so I do teach them exclusively the whole hours in German. We have a lot of German friends, obviously, and some of them I've only ever spoke German with. So yeah, I would say I'm fluent. Although, there's always room for improvement, or there's always moments where sometimes I'm still struggling to understand, but I think that's the reality for a lot of language learners.
No, absolutely, 100%. And I imagine a lot of people watching this conversation can relate to this feeling as well of being like, that you can explain yourself with various topics, with different people in a formal way, informal way, but then sometimes like words just don't come in the right moment. You're like, the
Yeah.
thingamajiggy, the whatchamacallit, the thing. And personally, I always try to maintain my Spanish because I'd say I'm fluent in Spanish as well. But there are all these little insecurities or uncertainties where I'm like, oh, that word, what was it? Or, oh, no, I just explained that really, really badly. So what I do with this is I try to read the news in Spanish. I make some videos in Spanish as well. My girlfriend's Spanish, some of my friends are Spanish. So I try to make sure that I'm still kind of surrounding myself in a Spanish speaking environment,
Mhm.
despite living in Brussels, where the language is really French and Dutch, Flemish, and then everybody speaks English, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
Over there in your routine, like apart from having German friends, do you like listen to podcasts in German or read the news in German?
I watch Netflix in German.
Okay.
My husband and I just started watching Love is Blind, Germany. So that is a big one, but I should listen to more German. I have read a couple German novels, which is really good, just to like keep up or learn new words if you're just kind of reading through something quickly and then the same phrases are popping up over and over. That's helpful. But yeah, listening to podcasts would be a good. I did actually start listening to a true crime podcast in German. I just remembered, and yeah, I should pick that back up again because uh I think my brain switched off halfway through or something, and then I, you know, kind of didn't pick it back up again. But yeah, right now, Netflix.
I mean, Netflix is great. It is funny because I also was watching Love is Blind Germany like this week with my girlfriend because we watched all of the editions from all over the world. And this is one of the few that we can't understand at all. Like there was Japanese that we couldn't understand either, and Swedish, we actually haven't watched that. But with the one in Mexico, the one in England, of course, the one in Brazil, you can kind of understand it. This time, we're relying on solely subtitles. But I've got to say, it's a bit of a letdown. It's a bit of a disappointment this season, I mean, because the couples aren't really gelling.
Hmm. See, we're not that far, so we haven't gotten to where they go on the honeymoon yet. But we have seen a couple of the reveals when they're revealed to each other for the first time that have been a little awkward. So yeah, I'm curious to see how these turn out.
Well, I won't say anything else, and if
Yeah,
I've
no
spoiled
spoilers.
anything, yeah, I apologize. But it's interesting for sure. A slightly cringy and awkward, but interesting, and you can find out for yourself.
Okay.
Excellent. Now let's get into your singing and opera. Was this something that you always dreamed of doing, and has it always been like something you wanted to do since you were a little girl?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been involved in theater, dance, singing, music as a kid. And I discovered opera. I can remember the moment when I was 16. And then I just was like spending weekends watching operas like a normal 16-year-old would do. Like, not
I
at
did the
all.
same thing, of course.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think my parents were a little bit like, oh, okay, this is like a real passion here. And yeah, then I started singing, taking private singing lessons, and wanted to kind of sing everything. But opera is such an interesting, all of the arias we would call them, or songs in an opera that I wanted to sing were probably a little bit too advanced, or definitely too advanced for a 16, 17-year old. So yeah, I just really got into it, and then I decided to study it for my bachelor's degree.
Fact. And is this something that you have to be like naturally talented at, or is it something that you can learn, like no matter what level you start out with?
That's a great question, because I do teach singing now, and a lot of people wonder about this. Can I sing or be a singer y- if I wasn't born with it, basically? But I do believe that everyone can learn to sing. I do believe that everyone has that ability. Um, as far as opera goes, if you would need like a lot of dedication, I wouldn't say never. Um, but talent is one thing, but then there's a ton of sort of, hard work and technique that goes into opera singing. So a lot of people like to say it's like the Olympic sport of singing, just because it takes so much strength and energy, technique, and years of training. So, but yeah, I mean, if anyone's out there wondering, can I be a singer? My gut reaction would be yes.
Hey, very optimistic, very positive, because I don't know if I could be a singer. And have you performed in many big places around Europe? Like, I don't know if you're still performing at the moment. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have. So where I live in Germany, I've done a few performances around near where I live. And when I was living in London, I also performed there. Um, it's a really difficult industry, singing. You would think that opera singing is a very unique, um, yeah, industry or line of work, but especially for someone with my voice type, a soprano, there are thousands of sopranos. It's a very saturated market. So yeah, it is really tough to kind of break into, and get your foot in the door, so to say. So but yeah, I do still perform. I would hope to perform a little bit more. But my online business has been going so well, so that has taken up a lot of my time recently. But yes, I still do.
Excellent. So, when is it that you started kind of transitioning slightly away from the music and opera singing and teaching English? You mentioned that you were kind of doing both at the same time, but when was the moment that you decided, actually, I'm going to start posting content related to this and start taking it more seriously?
Well, it was when I went viral for the first time, basically, because I was teaching. So I got started on social media because I was teaching with a company that's actually based in China. And I don't know if you've heard of the platform or the app Red.
It rings a bell, but I don't really know anything about it.
I don't know. By the time this video comes out, I don't know what the state of Red and TikTok will be in. But at the moment, there's this looming TikTok ban in the US where
Okay.
they're threatening to ban the app, right? And recently, a lot of Americans have moved over to this app, Red in sort of preparation of TikTok suddenly not being available anymore. So, yeah, I don't know if it'll be
Dun,
popular.
dun, dun.
Yeah, stay tuned. But that's actually where I started on that app because the company I worked for started running an account there for me. And, they told me just make some videos teaching some English things or some vocabulary or phrases. And, it'll get you more students and signups and this kind of thing. And I thought, yeah, why not? And then, a week or so after doing this, I got a message from the girl who was managing my social media. And she said, so you have now like 100,000 followers. You're our most successful teacher on the platform. We're going to need more videos, this kind of thing. And I was blown away. I had no idea that it was going to be like that. And it was actually them who suggested, maybe you want to take this to TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. So yeah, I kind of just went with it and it's been really great. And it's pretty amazing to connect with so many people around the world.
And with all of this, like, when was it? Because, like, I don't know, was it a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
I suppose it was maybe 2 years ago now, maybe
So
three.
it's been a whirlwind then. It's all
Yeah,
happened so fast.
it really did. Yeah. How long have you been on the social media space?
It's a little bit weird because with the company that I now used to work for, I was always posting some videos on Instagram for Teachify, but I never really took it that seriously. And this was like pre-pandemic, but it was like as a team that I'd post a video once a week, and it'd be very, very basic. And then since moving to Brussels, maybe I was looking to do something else with my free time because I didn't know that many people when I first moved here. And this was like 2022 around spring. So I thought, actually, I'm going to be more selfish. I'm going to start posting my own videos that are not the videos of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Instagram, it kind of took off after a few months. And I managed to get like 100,000 followers on Instagram relatively quickly. On TikTok, it took a lot longer. Here on YouTube, it's only really started to grow in the last 6 months, more or less. But yeah, I've been doing it now for like 2.5 years, coming up to
Okay.
3 years, and I am uber consistent. So this is the only thing that I can control. It's like what I mentioned earlier about trying to get ahead with content planning and preparation, because I know I can control the regularity with which I post, but I can't control what happens with people actually liking the content and then that resulting in the algorithm favoring me and going viral.
Mm.
So I just worry about what I can be in control of, and the rest, it's up to the robots at Google and Apple and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it really. You just have to be consistent. That's exactly it. Just keep posting.
Yeah, let's see. Now, let's speak about London, because I'm not from London, but I am English. You lived in London, so how long were you in London for? And yeah, could you sum up your experience whilst you were there?
Wait, I really want to know. Let I want to are you from the north?
Yeah,
Okay. I could maybe tell. I mean, I'm not going to try and guess exactly where in England you're from, but based on your accent,
I mean, go
but
for it.
I don't think I can. Mm,
My
yeah.
accent's very neutral at the moment. So, like,
Yeah.
as an English teacher, having lived abroad, different places, I've
Yeah.
kind of softened it and smoothed it a little bit, but you can still tell roughly where I'm from, I think.
Manchester?
It's close, very
Okay.
close. Technically, I'm from a town called Bingley, which is in Bradford, which is next to Leeds. But
Leeds.
Leeds, Manchester, they're very close. So usually I say I'm from Leeds, but in reality, I'm from a town of like 20,000 inhabitants called Bingley, which is kind of between Leeds and Manchester, but
Okay.
closer to Leeds.
I could tell it was a slightly northern accent though, because that's one thing that I learned from living in the UK is that you guys just have just such a wide range of accents. And just by meeting someone for the first time, you can tell where they're from based on your accents, which is wild. But which we have a little bit in the US, but not as yeah, I can't even imagine how one tiny island has such a variety of accents. But
And then
yeah,
in the
I
US, you have like what, five, six, maybe? It's like the Deep South. Maybe it's a difference between like a New Yorker.
mhm. Yeah, I'm sure within the different areas, like even in the Midwest, there's a couple different accents, but I have a pretty standard Midwestern accent, I would say. Um, but yeah, and most of my friends that are British are from the North because I feel like the Northern people are more similar to US Americans
All
than
right.
like people from maybe London or the South.
Okay, interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I would thought you were about to say that people from the north of England are just friendlier, but maybe that's what you were getting at. I'm sorry, any Southerners. It's a friendly joke. Don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. All friends here.
But no, tell us about London. How was it? How long were you there for? And was it easy to adapt to being in London, having been in Vienna before, and being from the Midwest?
Yeah, it's really interesting because you would think that the US and the UK are very similar. And I think they are. They share a lot of cultural things, but in some ways they're very different culturally. And there was a bit of a culture shock there, especially yeah, coming from a German speaking country. It was nice to now be able to speak in English, and wherever I went, to a restaurant or a grocery store, I could speak in English. So that was nice. And yeah, I absolutely love London. I think it might be my favorite city. It's just there's so much going on. You could, go see a West End musical in the evening, but then, during the day, uh, go to some like really trendy art show or just some really kind of cool bars or
Mhm.
cafes or just and so many different types of people. So much going on culturally. There's just you just can't really be bored in London. I think it's a great city.
Perfect. And yeah, how long were you there for? Was it 6 months, a year?
So I was there 2 years from 2016 to 2018. Yeah, doing my master's at the Royal College of Music. So
So,
yeah,
yeah. Watch this space. Maybe you'll move back to London in the future. Anything could happen.
maybe. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I would like to live in the UK again. I think my partner, my husband, is from England, so yeah, I could see us moving back there one day.
Perfect. And then when you were meeting the in-laws and when he was meeting the in-laws, were there any like funny jokes or things that came up between like vocabulary differences or pronunciation differences between British and American English?
Yeah, all the time, all the time. We actually, I have a a note in my phone of which I've been slacking on, but when we were first together, I would always write down these differences that we would discover because it would just be, little things. And I'd be like, hang on, I'm sorry. What did you just call those? Um, and, he's like, what? They're crisps. And I'm like, no, they're chips. What are you talking about? Just all of these kinds of things are like aubergine and eggplant or zucchini and uh
Come on, you got this. You got this.
wait, courgette.
Exactly. Well done.
Yeah. I would say now we just have like a mix of what we refer to things, which then sometimes I will say the British word for something, and my family will be like, "What? I'm sorry, what did you just
You've
say?"
been in
Right?
Europe for too long. Come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then even I will get confused. I'll be like, "Wait, hang on. What do we say? What do they say?" And my husband will have the same experience. We kind of forget which word belongs to who. Um, but yeah, so all the time we run into that kind of stuff. And my nephew, which actually my nephew Nate loves YouTube, and he wanted me to give him a shout out recently. So here's my shout out to Nate, because he's 5, but he's always pointing out, Auntie Claire says ketchup for tomato sauce, or she says vacuum cleaner for Hoover. He loves to point out the word differences, which is super cute.
Perfect. Well, hello, Nate, and I hope you're enjoying this episode. In case you are, and obviously you already speak English, but yeah, it's a fun little conversation to know more about your Auntie Claire. Wonderful, cool. Well, that being said, let's go over some other British and American words through conversation. So, I prepared a few questions, and tell me, do you live in a flat or an apartment or a house?
Mm. I live in an apartment, or as you would say, a flat.
And tell us about your flat. What's it like?
My It's really quite spacious, I would say. It's not like the one I lived in London, for example. London flats are pretty small. But yeah, I really like my apartment. I don't even know which word to
Yeah, I
use
know.
now.
It's like, which one do
Flat,
you choose?
apartment. But yeah, it's really nice. I'm pretty much in the center of the city where I live, and yeah,
And you have a nice little plan behind you as well. Beautiful.
I do have a lot of plans. That one in particular is okay because that one's really hard to kill. But most of the plants that I own, I'm not very good at taking care of them. Even the ones that are hard to kill, they like the I don't like succulents are very hard to kill, and like that mine's barely
That
hanging.
looks like it's past its best for sure.
Yeah. So I do have a lot of plans, nice, spacious. Here in Germany, you have to air out your apartments, which I don't know if you've heard of this or if you do this in Belgium. But it's very important. It's called lüften is the German word for it. And you have to open up your windows and lüften or air out your apartment every day.
But like, you have to? Is this like a law?
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but it is written in our rental agreement that we have to do this. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Germans and their efficiency and laws.
Oh, it
Next
is
level.
very important. And even in January, we we do this.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Game shivering just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Now, let's do another question, a nice easy one to chat about. So, this year, where are you thinking of going on holiday, British, or on vacation, American?
Yes. I say holiday a lot these days, which again, my family makes fun of me for.
They're going to disown you.
Yeah. But also, it does get confused. I asked my husband the other day, "What's your favorite holiday?" And his response was summer holiday. And I no, what, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, Valentine's Day, what's your favorite holiday? It's a day for us. That's important. Yeah. So there's always that slight difference there. But actually, we're going on vacation to Portugal very soon this month. So yeah, I'm really excited for that.
Have you ever been to Portugal before?
I have never been. No.
Well, you'll enjoy it. I mean, I'm guessing it'll be sunny. It's not as hot as Spain, but you've still got the sun.
Yeah.
Just because you've got the coast wherever you are, really. and they have a lot of cod, which in Portuguese is bacalhau. It's the
Oh,
same in Spanish. So I think cod is the most commonly eaten fish, at least. And yeah, Portugal, I like Portugal. It's cool. If there are any Portuguese people watching this, let us know in the comments.
and when you would go to, I assume you would just, when you were living in Spain, would you often go over to Portugal?
Not that often, but from living in Seville, it's kind of the southwest of Spain. So then the border with Portugal was only like an hour and a half away, more or less. So then Seville doesn't have a beach, but then if you drive an hour to the south, you can go to Cadiz or Huelva. And then just past Huelva, you have the border with Portugal. And you can tell quite a big difference between Spanish people, Portuguese people. There are a lot of similarities as well, of course. But
Yeah.
then when you go to the beach, it's a little bit less crowded. So then the beaches are perhaps a little bit longer, less stress. And if in January, I'm guessing it's not going to be very beach weather, but in summer, you'll hear some people like walking around the beaches with different snacks. And there's one snack that's very, very common. And they just say, bolinha, bolinha, which is like a pastry filled with cream and delicious. I think Portuguese pastries are very good. If you think of custard tarts, delicious as well.
Oh,
So
okay,
yeah,
good to know. Were you able to use your Spanish in Portugal? Like, is Portuguese very similar or not always?
it's very similar when it's written, but when it's pronounced, it's quite a lot different. So like Spanish people, they can read Portuguese fairly well. There'll be some different words that'll be slightly different, but generally speaking, the grammar is the same, and most important words are very similar, with just like the ending changing or the start changing. So you can get by with Spanish in Portugal. But to be honest, in Portugal, people speak pretty good English. So I
I
think
have
they've
heard this.
always had like films and series in original version with subtitles rather than having dubbing, where in Spain and in Italy, for example, and in France, perhaps because the language is more widely spoken, then they invested more money in like a dubbing industry. So this was before people decided they wanted to learn English. And now people have got used to listening to, for example, Spanish actors putting the voiceover for
Yeah,
Robert De Niro or whoever. So
yeah.
that's why I think the average English level in Portugal is quite high. So you should be able to get by just with English, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it's similar in Germany with the what you say about the dubbing industry. And what I think is so cool, I don't know if you know this, but so for example, the actor who dubs for Robert De Niro, say, is always the same actor. So he's like the German Robert De Niro, and he'll be known for that. So they always stick with one voice. So whenever, Robert De Niro gets a film, this guy's like, "Oh, great, we got another dubbing gig."
Come on, we've got another gig. That's interesting. The day that he decides to be also the voice of Tom Hanks, for example, is like, might be a little bit confusing there.
Yeah. Like, hang on. I thought this was Robert De Niro.
Exactly. Awesome. So anyway, before we finish, let's just do a little quick fire round of British to American. So I'm going to say the British word, and if you can think of it, I want you to tell me the American word. No pressure, of course.
Okay.
The first one is torch.
Flashlight.
Excellent. The next one is a nappy.
A diaper.
Fantastic. After that, we have a dummy.
Oh, a binky or a pacifier.
Interesting. And by the way, for people to know, this is what some babies use to keep them quiet so they can chew on it. But yeah, a dummy, a binky, or a pacifier. Let's do a few more. Nice, easy one. A garden.
A backyard.
Wonderful. And how about a pavement?
A sidewalk.
Wonderful. And a queue?
A line.
A bin?
A garbage can.
car park,
A parking lot.
petrol,
Gas.
a jumper,
A sweater.
lovely trainer,
Gym shoes.
and a lift.
An elevator.
Round of applause, round of applause. That's the perfect way, I think, to end this conversation. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little chit chat. You've learned some new phrasal verbs, expressions, and practiced your listening skills. And I'm sure you can tell the difference between my British accent and Claire's American accent, even though she's turning into a Brit as we speak, I think. But no, thank you very much, Claire. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your channel. This was so much fun, and it was awesome to meet you.
Wonderful. So yeah, on that note, thank you, and see you next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Louis. Thanks.